And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, February 15th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by No House Advantage. 7 games on the slate for today. I actually like the looks of this slate. I had a really good time breaking it down earlier this morning on the Process Show, Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, just in case you're not aware. So if you are an early bird, please come join us. Before we get started, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did your Monday shake out?
Not great. Just a lot of stuff went wrong. Didn't have a lot of Quentin Grimes, who was 50% owned and like 12x or something. Yeah, so like a lot of my highest owned guys did well, which is cool. But I just needed Grimes not to score a million.
Sure. Reasonable. Oh, it was an interesting slate. That's to say the least. I didn't expect Seth Curry to become the new offensive focal point for the Brooklyn Nets. I didn't expect Bruce Brown to be the highest scoring fantasy player on FanDuel yesterday. Yet,
yeah, didn't have enough of him.
That happened. I actually had 14%, which is on a normal day, like going to give me a decent shot of having like the keys to the castle. Did not have enough of Josh Giddey, which was also the keys to the castle. But we got 7 games to break down today. The slate looks good. I say we just dive in and start talking about it because there are a couple spots where I think we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, let's go.
All righty. We're going to kick it off. First and foremost, the Cleveland Cavaliers, 1.5 point favorites in Atlanta, 221 total. We know for Atlanta, there's going to be no John Collins. Bogdan Bogdanović and DeLon Wright are both questionable. On the Cleveland side of this one, it's still just no Lauri Markkanen, which we're pretty much aware of at this point. So let's start it off on the Cleveland side. Does anything for Cleveland actually stand out to you?
I mean, the matchup is decent, but I don't think a ton stands out outside of Garland at 7,400. I think that's a pretty solid price tag. We've seen that come down like $1,000. So I think that's interesting. Other than that, though, I don't really see a whole lot that stands out.
All right.
Like you can take shots on Allen, you can take shots at Mobley, but I think Garland looks the best.
Yeah. Like we've got wait, is this real?
What?
Did I update the ownership correctly? No, I had to flip this or something, right? They can't be getting 20% ownership. Maybe they are. Yeah, I guess that's probably reasonable. Yeah, Garland at 20% on FanDuel, 20% on DraftKings. The FanDuel price, the DraftKings, I mean, I guess that's fine. Jared Allen, 18% on FanDuel, I think is the best play in this game. 7,400 power forward and center eligibility on FanDuel. That would be the piece that I'd want to get to most. Maybe I'm short selling Garland here a little bit. I like these guys a little bit more. I don't know. Something about DraftKings just doesn't stand out to me for the 21%. I'd be more likely to get to Mobley at 65. I don't really want anything other than Garland, Mobley, or Allen, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I mean, Levert's salary dropped.
Yeah,
that's dropped a lot too. It's just so difficult to say like I'll take Levert over Garland. You know, obviously in a lineup here or there, that's fine, but Garland I think just looks a lot better.
Yo, no lie, that Patty Mills pick was ass. Adam and I basically had the exact same amount of Patty Mills yesterday, so that's right in our faces. We all didn't miss Bruce Brown. I just said that I had 14%. He was 4% owned. So I don't need to extend my player pool at all. He was already in it and already owned significantly more than the public. So I think I nailed it. Thanks, Real Fred Major. Hear that, Adam? Patty Mills was ass yesterday.
He was ass yesterday.
He was ass. I agree. I wish I didn't have 60% in hindsight. Trust me. Yeah. Let's go to Atlanta. This is a spot that gets really tricky. Rotations in the last game, a little bit mixed up. We have no John Collins. That changes things dramatically. But I guess the question for you is this. How much Clint Capella do you want today at 5,300?
A good amount. I think that Collins being out should solidify his playing time because we had seen like we've seen Capella not play a lot of minutes recently, but John Collins has been getting minutes at the 5, and basically you're getting a 3-man center rotation essentially where Capella is playing like 22, Okongwu is playing like 16, and then Collins is playing the rest. Last game without Collins, you got 31.5 minutes from Capella. Okongwu backed him up, played 16.5 minutes, so you got a true 48-minute split from those guys. And I expect it to be the same thing here. Now, Capella doesn't have to play 31.5 minutes again. You could certainly get 26 to 28 from Capella, 20 to 22 from Okongwu, depending on how the game is going and how they're playing. But I do fully expect 48 minutes from those two. And more often than not, Capella to be approaching 30 minutes. So at 5,300, he looks very good despite the difficult matchup.
What do we do with the rest of this team? We've got ownership coming into Trae Young at 9,300. Love that price. We've got ownership coming into DeAndre Hunter at 4,600. Love that price. These guys were set up to play, or they either did play tons of minutes or were set up to play tons of minutes. How are you handling the rotations for Atlanta? Who else stands out to you other than Capella?
So I have one general question for you because I know you've gone through the slate already on the process show. Did DraftKings just straight up nerf pricing today, or is it just a coincidence that Garland and Young are both free?
You are going to see quite a few other players like that in some future games that we will get to.
Okay. Because the matchup is really difficult, but $9,300 Trae Young without John Collins looks fantastic.
He's 10-2 on FanDuel, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. But you get a usage bump for Young. He doesn't even need to be efficient at this price point. He's going to play 36 minutes, assuming the game's competitive, and he's going to get up a ton of shots. Obviously, he's going to get a bunch of assist opportunities as well. So at 9,300, he looks really good. But obviously, and the reason I asked the question, if if every point guard we're going to talk about on the slate is $1,000 less expensive than they should be, then they all look really good and relatively your exposures kind of even out anyway.
Yeah. You're going to see some pretty decent pricing clear across the board today. And we've got a Charlotte, Minnesota game with a 243 total. That's exceptional. Indy missing the 6 guys that have played the most minutes for them this season, taking on Milwaukee with what I think is no Giannis, but maybe we'll have a bigger discussion as we get further along for that one. This Atlanta team, though, like Okongwu basically played the backup center role to Capella. Bogdanovic played massive minutes, but didn't start. Hunter played massive minutes. Gallo started, didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. Is Gallo sort of like the sneaky most interesting guy if he just happens to close over, a slightly more like Bogdanovic isn't pulling the ownership either. I kind of want to have at least one of Bogdanovic or Gallo just because someone's going to close.
Right. I think that piece becomes really interesting because, yeah, like you were saying, 7% going to Bogdanovic, 7% going to Herter, 6% going to Gallo. There's a good chance one of those guys exceeds their price point. Good luck guessing which one it is. I mean, you can throw DeAndre Hunter into that conversation as well, but he's somehow pulling 20%. So that's something that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think Hunter is fine at 4,600. He played 38 minutes last game, but I don't think Hunter should be pulling 3 times the ownership of Herter, Gallo, and Bogdanovic.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bogdanovic the most out of anybody here. I gave him 32 minutes, so maybe that's the issue, and I'm just being too aggressive there. But 7% owned, shooting guard, small forward. Like, to me, he stands out. Like, if Hunter's getting 20 and Bogdanovic is getting 7, there's no chance that I'm getting to Hunter. I'm clearly getting to Bogdanovic.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Bogdanovic's minutes, by the way. Obviously, I haven't done my projections yet for this game, but I played the 2-game slate on Super Bowl Sunday and had to do it. And when I was doing Atlanta's projections, the big question for me was, do they throw another body into the rotation? And it screws me because I didn't want to go to like 34 plus minutes for all of these guys because I wasn't super confident that they wouldn't just throw another body in outside of Lou Williams. But they didn't. They gave 14 minutes to Lou Williams. They ran basically the most favorable rotation that you could get in that game. So there's obviously no guarantee that happens again, but I think the assumption should be that it will. So like I do think Hunter is a good play. I just don't think that there's a big gap between him and these other guys.
Yeah, like I gave Hunter 34 minutes. I guess I could be giving him 36 or more here. I don't think that would be crazy. The Gallo minutes are the toughest piece. I gave him 25. I don't want to treat it like he can't play the fourth quarter. I feel like I need to give him some of that potential closing run. Do you have any lean there on Gallo?
I think it's probably just what's the score and who's playing well. Yeah. I mean, I think I would just do something like max 2 of Hunter, Gallo, Bogdanovic.
Do you see a scenario where Capella doesn't close here? Other than like Okongwu just simply closing over him, which doesn't seem to be the case, but like that obviously makes mild sense.
That's what I was going to say. One of Capella where Okongwu was closing, I think.
Okay, so you think we're getting 48 minutes out of Capella Okongwu?
Yep. Yeah, that was another question I kind of had last game. Like I played a lot of Capella because I expected it to be 48 minutes between those two, but there was always the chance that they were going to throw like Jang into the rotation or something and run a 3-man center rotation. They didn't. So, I mean, especially against Cleveland, what else are they going to do at center? It would be weird if they went like Gallo.
I doubt they play them alongside each other, so it shouldn't really matter here.
Yeah.
Anything else for Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm setting the rule where I get one of Capella or Okongwu.
Sure.
They could play alongside each other, but I don't expect them to.
No. Maybe you get 2 minutes or something like that, but I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. FanDuel prices just aren't all that interesting.
You're doing well, and I'm glad I have your comment to distract me from the show.
Like you got them added or removed? What happened here, Zach? I hope it's good.
Yeah,
I hope it's good now.
I hope things are getting better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that couldn't really be much worse, right?
It's
if I have to have surgery on my balls, I assume that something before that was bad.
Yeah, that's up there on the list of things that I would not like to ever do.
Doug, I don't know. He said balls. Well, I mean, technically he said testicles, but I don't know if it's a hernia. I'm going to go with cyst removal. Okay. Interesting. You got it removed. I got one of those too, Mud. So we're on the same page.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Isn't that what everybody wanted to know?
Actually, one of my roommates in college did too. I'd totally forgotten about that. I'm glad I have that image in my head now.
Well, good luck with that, Zach. They told me that I didn't have to do anything for it. So that was the answer that I wanted to hear back in the day too.
Steven, if you're watching, just know I'm picturing your balls now.
All righty. Anything else here for Atlanta?
No.
All righty. Well, let's talk a little bit about the schedule for the rest of the day. We have the Yahoo NBA show coming up at 11:30. We don't have football after this any longer. PGA strategy show coming up at 1. We have the NHL strategy show coming up at 2. The No House Advantage NBA show at 4. The NBA props show coming up at 5. We got a lead in for the deeper dive now. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 5:30. And then we have Live Before Lock coming up at 6:30. Free content for today, NBA projections, PGA rankings, and NHL rankings. All free. Great day to be at awesemo.com. Now we go to Dallas. We have a lot to talk about here. The Dallas Mavericks are 3.5-point dogs in Miami, 210 total. Not the best total in this one. That is the lowest on the slate. Looks like we're going to get Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans available for this one. So before we dive into any of this, do you have any idea how much we're going to see Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans play in this game?
I don't think it should be a lot. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable saying that it's not enough to want to roster $5,900 Dinwiddie.
I agree.
And unless Davis Bertans magically figured out how to play basketball again, I don't know why you would ever want to roster him at any price.
I'm going to give you what I gave them right now. You tell me your thoughts, all right?
Yeah.
I gave Bertans 18 minutes. Might be high. I gave Dinwiddie 28. That piece I'm scared about.
Yeah, I don't know what to do there because they should prioritize playing Brunson over him.
I also still gave Brunson 34.
So you just have a lot of the 3-guard lineup.
Yeah. I think that we see a little bit less, potentially see a little bit less playing time for Reggie Bullock, that Frank Ntilikina's minutes are just gone.
Sure.
I mean, that piece is pretty obvious. And I reduced a bit Josh Green's minutes.
Yeah, I think that's fine. The issue, the issue that I run into is I just don't know how much they cut back on Bullock / Finney Smith for Dinwiddie.
It feels like it should be a lot, though, right? Like, if you're trading Kristaps Porzingis, isn't Spencer Dinwiddie coming in here to not be like the backup point guard?
So I don't really know what their motives were. Like, was that if it was more so it's going to be easier to get off Dinwiddie and Bertans separately in the offseason than Porzingis, then I don't know that they really care about playing Dinwiddie a lot.
Sure.
If it was, we think that he's better than he's played in Washington and he's going to be a key part of our rotation, then yes. And the thing is too, like Bullock's been playing really well.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. It's not like you're talking about just like a dead piece out there that they are probably super excited to replace. I think 28 is reasonable. I probably will go a few minutes lower than that. And again, in this spot, I don't think it matters that much.
No, I got 8% Dinwiddie in FanDuel's sim at 5,600. And I don't think that's precluding me from getting to any of the other pieces that would be relevant. Like, it's not like I was going to get to Josh Green anyway. It's not like I was getting Frank Ntilikina anyway. I think that Dallas is set up to have 2 of Luka, Brunson, and Dinwiddie on the floor at all times, so that they constantly have 2 legitimate ball handlers on the floor no matter what. And I think they're going to try to do that.
Yeah, agreed. I also just kind of expect Dinwiddie to, obviously take a backseat to Luka, but probably take a backseat to Brunson, at least for now.
How do you want to handle Luka? We've got him at 21% ownership on FanDuel, 11 on DraftKings. He's expensive. I think the rates that he's had as of late have to go back down to like the if Tim Hardaway were playing type rates. I think Dinwiddie becomes Tim Hardaway.
I think that's fair. Does that really have an impact on Luka though? Like,
Couple usage points. He goes from like 40 to 37, like
Okay.
nothing crazy.
Yeah, I just don't. I guess my thing was like I didn't really know if the way he's been playing lately like I don't know if it's a coincidence that Hardaway is out or if it's related because
Sure.
it's not like Hardaway's a high usage guy when he's playing with Luka.
He is when Porzingis isn't around.
When Luka's out there,
Hardaway sees a bit more usage when Porzingis goes away, and then Luka sees a bit more usage when they both go away.
right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. My biggest concern with Luka, obviously, the ceiling is what it is, but we've already talked about Darius Garland being $1,000 cheaper than normal, Trae Young being $1,000 cheaper than normal. Luka didn't get a discount, so from just a general like overview standpoint, unless you get crazy value opening up and you can just do whatever you want, the opportunity cost becomes a lot higher on somebody like Luka than if the mid range were correctly priced.
Yeah. And don't worry, we're going to touch on LaMelo Ball and D'Angelo Russell and a bunch of other guards in way better. So Drew Holiday, a bunch of other guards in way better spots. So I don't love the idea of getting to Luka. DFS works fine as a value play, 10% owned, something like that. We have Jalen Brunson at 6K on FanDuel as the second highest owned guy in this game at 19%. How do you feel about Brunson at 6K or even 6,400 on DK?
I think he's a little cheap, but I do have concerns there because, again, we don't know exactly how this is going to look with Dinwiddie, and it's also just a shitty spot. I mean, you have a 103 implied total for Dallas. Miami is good defensively. They don't play fast. It's not the type of matchup where I'm like, oh, well, he might lose some minutes, but he's going to be, producing at a higher rate. Like, he's probably not. So it's not a bad spot to like take some chances, but I don't really like it at ownership.
I agree. I'm way lighter on the Dallas pieces than the FanDuel ownership shows. I'm way lighter on Dallas than the DraftKings ownership shows. Not that DraftKings is showing all that much ownership.
Yeah, I mean, 5% on DraftKings, I think that is reasonable just to, he becomes a guy where if I have a lineup with some chalkier plays, then I need a $6,400 guy to close it out. Brunson's certainly fine, but I don't know. I'm not particularly confident in him.
Yeah, luckily we're getting this Dallas team taking on Miami so that we don't really have to pay too much attention to our assumptions. Like, you're probably going to have to go north of 28 minutes to get Dinwiddie into anything of relevance. It's not like people are lying. I mean, we've got Reggie Bullock at 17% ownership on FanDuel at 4,100 today. I'd have a real hard time pulling the trigger on that. There are way too many ways that he just doesn't continue to play 36 minutes a game.
Who are you talking about?
Bullock is 17 on FanDuel right now. Like, that's just not.
You said he was 4,100?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's decent. Like, I think it's still likely he plays north of 30, and that's pretty cheap, but I wouldn't be confident in it.
Yeah, like, I gave him 28 because it was the only way that I could do that, basically, and keep Josh Green in the rotation. Ultimately, like, Reggie Bullock's a 0.7 guy. I don't want to get there at chalk when they're integrating two new players.
Yeah, well, 0.7 guys sometimes 10x their salary in the first half.
I know. You should try playing them.
Yeah.
Anything else for Dallas?
Nope.
For Miami, no Tyler Hero for this one. He feels like he's just in and out constantly. Obviously, no Oladipo, no Markieff Morris. Q-tag on Jimmy Butler, Q-tag on Caleb Martin. I've got them both in for right now. Kyle Lowry is 36% owned on FanDuel, where he's 5,900. Feels a little high, but I still like getting there. Lowry 17% owned on DraftKings. Bam at 7,900 on DK is 16% owned. Love that price for Bam. I will happily get to Jimmy Butler anytime he's going to be under 9K. How do you feel about this top three for Miami?
I agree with you on Butler. He's another one. He's like $1,000 less than he normally is. And to be fair with Butler, he's probably a little bit overpriced normally. So that $1,000
also has a Q tag, so that ownership is a little bit dubious.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be something to pay attention to. But I do think at 8,600, he's a decent option. Again, it's still like if Butler is 8,600, I still think guys like Trae Young for 700 more or Garland for 800 less are going to look, or 1,200 less, are going to look a little bit better. But decent discount there. Bam looks fine. Lowry at 6,400 looks fine.
Bam is 7,900 on DraftKings and 9,500 on FanDuel.
That's a gap.
It is. Now he's got the power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which is certainly worth like extra salary, but not too shabby. We also have Max Strus up to 11% ownership on DraftKings. I don't know if that's just because of like the Butler Q tag and the Caleb Martin Q tag. Do you have an interest in Strus? I guess probably like only if those guys are out.
Yeah, I mean, he played like 19 minutes last game. I
Yeah.
think it's only if those guys are out.
Okay, just checking. What's your favorite piece from Miami?
Probably Lowry. 36 minutes,
Ooh, okay.
6,400.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty close between like him, Butler, and Bam. I just think the salary's a little bit more favorable, and Bam on DraftKings, you only have the center eligibility.
Jason Hargrove with the super chat says, I normally play one single line in multiple contests, mostly 5-mans. What's y'all advice on building a single lineup? You playing your cash lineup there?
No. I mean, it's I guess generally my process, like when I play single entries, I'm basically playing my top ranked tournament lineup out of my 150. I do weight projection a little bit heavier just because I only have one lineup, but I think like in general, you're trying to build a lineup that is likely to succeed and has one or two lower owned pieces. So if you're using like the boom bust tool, you would want to typically be getting guys that either are really high in boom percentage or optimal percentage, and then find one or two guys that fit into your lineup that are just projected to be under owned.
Okay. Anything else from Miami?
PJ Tucker's 3,500. I guess that's sort of worth mentioning.
10% owned right now, power forward center.
Yeah, I mean he's not anything I'm excited about, but if he's going to play 28 minutes, he can get there, I guess.
The next game is a game that I would desperately like to watch once both teams are at full strength. But for now, Boston 1-point favorites in Philly. Boston is playing incredible basketball. We've got everybody basically available for this Boston team. Not a lot of ownership, though. 17% to Jaylen Brown on FanDuel, where he's 8,200, 12% on DraftKings, where he's 8,300. Nobody else in double digits. I love the Boston team. I don't think I get to them really from a fantasy perspective. What do you think for the Celtics today?
I think they look pretty difficult here because they didn't really get the discounts at all.
No.
Tatum is normally priced. Brown is normally priced. Robert Williams has been playing a lot. Obviously has his hands full here, but he's normally priced center only on DraftKings. I don't see a lot. I mean, like Derek White, Marcus Smart, they're certainly okay at those salaries, but I don't really think that they're underpriced, and there's a lot of guys that are.
Do you think Daniel Tice is entering the rotation today? They've gotten to a straight 8-man rotation for the past 2 games.
I think he does today.
Same.
Because, I mean, 2 games ago, I don't think he was even active yet. And then last game, they had said he was active, but he wasn't going to play. I think that he is potentially useful against the Sixers as well. Yeah. So I think he plays.
I got him in there as well. It's an interesting team now. It seems like they have a rotation that is pretty cut and dry. They're also missing a bunch of roster spots that they're going to have to fill out on. So we'll see how that ends up in the buyout market. But like to me, they're just playing 9 guys. We know exactly who they are. We know who's getting the minutes. Like I don't think there's a scenario really barring injury where Peyton Pritchard just suddenly falls into additional minutes. Like this is just going to be a shit ton of minutes to really, really good NBA players.
Yeah. And you could conceivably see, like you could still see an 8-man rotation where it's Tice instead of Pritchard.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think Boston might be the most undervalued team in the East right now.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
I'm incredibly interested in them.
Yeah, I mean, you were the one that mentioned how good their starting unit's been this year when they play together, and then Derek White, I think, was a great addition.
I think Derek White is a perfect addition, and that starting lineup is even better when you swap out Horford for Grant Williams. They're like plus 35 per 100 possessions or something like that when they do that. That's insane.
And then now you're going to have the iteration too where you swap out Horford for White.
Right? Yeah, I think they have like a legitimate hardcore 7-man rotation, and you toss Tice and Pritchard in there, plus any buyout guys for the playoffs. That's a strong concentration. Teams are going to have a whole hell of a lot of trouble scoring on this team because their defense, Smart, White, Tatum, Brown, Williams. I mean, that's 5 average to above average to elite defenders. That's scary.
Start pounding the unders now on the Celtics and Nets series.
Well, I mean, if it's just Patty Mills, Seth Curry, Cam Thomas.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I was assuming
Blake
Simmons
Griffin and
Durant.
Andre Drummond. I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I was assuming the Simmons and Durant pieces on defense there.
Let's talk about Philly now, where Joel Embiid is about 20% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. Not a lot of news here to worry about for Philly. Obviously, Seth Curry and Andre Drummond aren't here. Paul Reed is now the backup center for Philadelphia. I kind of like Maxey still for 6,500. No surprises. He's 8,100 on FanDuel. I can skip that one. The minutes are down, though. I have him down to 36 now, finally. Tobias Harris, though, I think looks kind of interesting at 7,300. I just don't know if I want 20% of Embiid. I think I can get there, but I think there are just better spots today, especially in this matchup. I might just be crazy, though.
It's so difficult with Embiid. Like, I'm at the point where I hate talking about him because it feels like Jokic. It's the same thing where it's just like, obviously I want to get to Joel Embiid, but you also have to consider the rest of your lineup. But then if he scores 80, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to need him, and you figure out, you're going to have to just figure out the rest. So the way he's been playing, like, he still looks good at 11-6. Being center only is kind of rough. The matchup's rough. Likely to just be a low scoring game. I would think I probably just get around the field on him. I don't like the matchup. I, at least right now, think that, again, kind of like the same thing as with Luka, when you have a bunch of really good players that are $1,000 underpriced, it just makes it more difficult to pay what is close to the correct price on Embiid. So, and kind of like to conceptualize it, just think about your lineup where you have Embiid and some 5K guy, and then you're able to say, what, like just using guys we've talked. So let's say you have like Embiid and Derek White. And then you can just say, wait a minute, I can play Trae Young and Darius Garland instead. I think from an upside standpoint, you're going to end up preferring that other one. So that's kind of the issue. But at the same time, Embiid obviously is a good play whenever you can get there.
Yeah, and we've got Capella looking like a really good value in the mid fives. That looks great at center. You can very easily pay the going rate for Mobley or Allen. Robert Williams in this game as well. We're going to talk about a lot more centers. I just think it's pretty easy to find alternatives, especially at value today. Do you have a favorite Philly guy that isn't Embiid?
Probably $7,300 Harris, but no.
Perfect answer. I agree that it's Harris, and I agree that it's not all that interesting. I would give anything for James Harden to be healthy for this game. I think this would be an incredibly fun game to watch. It would be a slog, but
one thing I guess that is worth mentioning, and it's fully dependent on, what kind of value opens up throughout the day, but there are minutes available for the combination of Danny Green, Niang, Korkmaz, Thibault, and they're all sub 4K. You shouldn't be confident in any of them, but if you're, especially, and this is more so for, 150 max type players, if you kind of just rotate through those guys to some extent, it is going to, allow you to get to those Embiid or Luka type guys and still maintain some upside. So I don't think any of them look very good, but like collectively, there's a pretty decent chance one of them beats their salary.
Alrighty. Anything else for Philadelphia?
Nope.
Time to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be No House Advantage. What we're talking about here are peer-to-peer contests where you're ranking player props on a confidence interval. If you use the promo code Awesemo, you can get yourself $25 on your first deposit. We've got a couple props here I'm going to try to hit Adam with right now. Let's see. Who stands out as interesting? That Clint Capella line has already been bumped back up. That's interesting to see. Who's in a situation?
Doubtful.
Who's doubtful?
Reggie Bullock.
Oh, well, Spencer Dinwiddie is going to play 30 minutes, I would imagine now.
Seems likely.
Glad I already have recorded my videos today, so that is mostly meaningless. Here's a question for you. We're going to talk about this team shortly. How do you feel about 15.5 points for Montrezl Harrell? I know that feels random.
Slight under.
Montrezl Harrell and Mason Plumlee, by the way, played massive minutes alongside of each other in Charlotte's last game. We're about to dig into that. Make sure you're checking out No House Advantage. Make sure you're using that promo code. We have No House Advantage projections and optimal lineups already generated for you on Awesemo.com. So make sure you get it so you can take down some big prizes. Download the app in the App Store or go to nohouseadvantage.com today. Indy, 11-point dogs in Milwaukee, taking on the Bucks. Indy now, if this were 2 weeks ago, it would have been a very different story. Indy is now without Karis LeVert, Chris Duarte is hurt, Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Miles Turner, and in my opinion, Malcolm Brogdon, who's been out for 13 games. He's questionable again. I have no concept of why Malcolm Brogdon would be coming back before the All-Star break for a Tuesday game, potentially a Thursday game, and then sitting for another week. So I'm treating Malcolm Brogdon for once like he's out, which means that asshole is for sure playing now. So I have him out.
Yeah, it's not even a home game.
Right. That's a good point. Revenge narrative against Milwaukee, though.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
That actually is one of the only times I mildly care is like when you have someone that is on the fence about playing.
Yeah. 8% owned Tyrese Halliburton, in my opinion, looks fantastic. Buddy Hield's about 20% owned. These guys are playing 40 minutes a game. O'Shea Brissett, 21% owned on DraftKings. To me, a great value. Lance Stevenson, 40% owned on DraftKings at 4K, point guard, small forward. I agree with it. I think you could even make a case for Jalen Smith today. There is so much value on the Indiana Pacers on DraftKings.
Yep. Yeah, I think these guys all look good. And again, I'm assuming Brogdon is out as well. It changes if Brogdon plays, obviously, both in terms of production and also minutes. But Jalen Smith started the second half last game after Duarte got hurt. I think that's pretty likely to be the case again today, in which case he's probably playing like mid to upper 20s. He played about 10 and a half. He played like 16 and a half minutes in the second half. So, I mean, if you get 28 to 30 minutes from Jalen Smith at 3,900, that looks good. You don't need that. Like, he could play 24 and look pretty good. Lance Stevenson should get more minutes with Duarte out as well, especially if he's playing well. He closed both halves last game. So I think he looks good at 4K. We know, the type of production he can give you. Halliburton's been great and playing huge minutes. No issues with him at 8,500. Brissett at 5,400 looks fine. He's playing a ton of minutes, rebounding well, playing well. Like, that price tag starts to get a little bit scary, but based on the playing time, he still looks good. And then don't sleep on Buddy Hield. Shooting guard, small forward, 6K. He struggled last game, but I think he shot like 1 for 14 from 3 or something. Still got opportunities, still played 40 minutes. I don't think that you should actually be looking at last game as a negative because he still got a bunch of opportunities and played a ton of minutes.
This is just going to be a wild spot to play a ton of Indiana. Yeah, 1 for 13 for Buddy Hield, 5 of 23 from 3 since he's become a Pacer. I'm just playing all of these dudes. No way around it.
Max 3 probably from Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
My thinking being that, like, outside of Halliburton and to some extent Hield, they're all just so cheap.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, like Abel you can pretty easily get 30, 35 from Stevenson and Smith without them having to like dominate scoring or anything.
For sure. Abel Ramos said, Ship and Josh, do teams play faster headed into playoff time? Never seen the Knicks put up 90 after 3 quarters. Should we ramp up pace projections? I've never looked and I'm not going
to. Say I actually have no idea what the answer to that is, but I
doubt it.
I doubt it, yeah.
I would expect the opposite. If pace is going up, it's probably from turnovers. Yeah, I mean, also putting up 90 after 3 quarters might not have anything to do with pace. They could just be, making their shots. Let me look and see what the pace was in that Knicks game last night.
I was going to look and see what they shot.
Well, they had a neutral points per possession rate, so I don't know. They didn't shoot anything crazy.
Yeah, 50% from the field, 38% from 3.
Yeah. I think that's just a pedestrian.
Never mind. 42% from the field, 30%. They shot poorly.
Yeah. It's a matchup against Oklahoma City. You're going to get a lot of possessions in that one.
Quentin Grimes took 14 3-pointers.
Yeah, obviously you should have played him.
Yes, I see that.
You didn't have him in for 40 minutes?
Did not, no.
Shame. But yeah, Abel, ultimately, it's not something that I will look at or entertain. And if it changes, you'd be bumping a pace projection like 1% more than before, or 2%. Like it's marginal at best.
And also, if you're just assuming it happens for every team, it's going to kind of come out in the wash.
It also is. So Milwaukee has been the point of argument in our Discord throughout this entire morning, mostly because of me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't remember. Maybe you saw it differently. I believe that we saw Giannis is not going to be playing before the All-Star game last night. I know for a fact that Greg said it on our show last night. I don't see any details that show that that's happening, but I have left Giannis out of my projections for today. I don't really know what else to do here other than to say that that's what I did. I don't see anything that is pointing to that as of right now. It is a back-to-back for Milwaukee, so that sort of information is also going to be tough to find from time to time. I mean, granted, we didn't get the Oklahoma City starting lineup last night until 7:28, so I am approaching this Milwaukee game as if Giannis isn't playing. I also don't give a single shit whether or not he's in or not, because it's 10:30 in the morning and who cares? So I don't know why anybody would argue about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I have him in for now. It doesn't matter. We will get Golden State's in, or not Golden State. We will get
they'd give anything for that to be the case.
We will get Milwaukee's injury report at some point this afternoon, and Giannis will be on it or not be on it, and we will have a better idea.
Yeah, it could not be less meaningful news. Michael Roundtree, that's what I thought the report was as well. And I remember Greg saying it on the show. So I just went with it this morning. I didn't even dig into it. If he happens to be in, then just put him in. Like, super easy to figure out. If he's out, though, we know what we're doing. We're playing a bunch of Drew Holiday, depending on the. Well, I mean, I personally am going to play a bunch of Chris Middleton. No one's going to be surprised by that one. I want to go to Portis. I want to go to Serge Ibaka, who I think is one of the best plays of the day at 4,300 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. Even if Giannis is back, I think I still like Ibaka as like a mild value play in this spot. How do you like Milwaukee today?
I mean, I like them. It's just a matter of who do we like and who's in. If Giannis is in, obviously Giannis looks good. Holiday still looks fine. Portis looks okay. But it across the board just becomes less appealing because Giannis dominates everything. But if he's out, going right back to Holiday, going right back to Portis, Ibaka would look fine. War at 3K would be okay. Portis would look good. So everybody obviously looks better if Giannis is out. If Giannis is in, then I think it's a lot more. Everybody kind of looks average. Giannis looks the best, but again, he's competing with Embiid and Luka at the top too.
Can you justify Ibaka if Giannis is in?
I think it's pretty tough. I wouldn't feel very confident there because I think Portis is still probably playing 28 to 30. I mean, I guess if it depends if Ibaka plays backup center and backup four. Like if they run the rotation in a way where Greg Monroe doesn't play, and so Ibaka is getting say 18 minutes behind Portis, and then playing like 10 minutes behind Giannis. Then he's playable. I don't know if that'll be the case or not.
I mean, that should be the case. If Ibaka can play the minutes, not playing Greg Monroe is definitely the answer. Whether or not that happens, we'll see. Keep your eyes on it, guys, though. The moral of this story is that who gives a shit if somebody is in at 10 o'clock? And now we get to the belle of the ball on today's slate. The Charlotte Hornets are 6.5-point dogs in Minnesota, 243 total. Hornets are still without Hayward, McDaniels, and Martin. We've got 20% ownership plus going to Rozier, Bridges, and Ball on FanDuel. Those guys are in the teens on DraftKings. I'm still happy to get to Oubre, Washington, Harrell, Plumlee to a degree, depending on the site. I don't know how you step away from Charlotte without having like major interest across the board.
Yeah, I agree with you. That rotation last game is interesting to me. I don't totally trust it, but at the very least, it gives you an idea of what the ceiling looks like for guys like Harrell. If him and Plumlee both can play 30 minutes together, then he is certainly a reasonable option at 5,300. Plumlee at 5,500 looks okay as well. My concern is I don't know like how often they go to that. Like you don't have spacing there. Plumlee obviously can pass, but you're going to have trouble doing anything at the rim offensively with LaMelo. But like I think PJ Washington fits better, but it creates a situation where, at least we know they're willing to do that. So I would just say, like either max 2 of Plumlee, Washington, Harrell, or still max 1 of Plumlee, Harrell. Either
It
one of
got
those
them
are
back
fine.
into the game. Like they played a ton of time in the fourth quarter together, and it cut the lead. I just can't imagine being like, I think we're going to go to Harrell and Plumlee.
Yeah,
Like he's
it's a
got to be willing
really
to. Like that couldn't have been the break in case of emergency out of the gate. Like they have to be willing to do this.
yeah. It's just really weird to me. Like I would still expect it to be not like that. Like you could go like 28 Plumlee, 24 Harrell, maybe.
Yeah,
That's giving them a few minutes alongside each other. It kind of accounts for that. But there's no way I'm going into this expecting like 28 plus from both of these guys.
I went 25-25, and I still gave more minutes to PJ Washington. I think that's ultimately the long-term goal.
Yeah, like it would make sense projection wise to me to do something like, hang on, I don't know if my math's gonna be right. So like 28 to Plumlee, 24 to Harrell, 26 to 28 to Washington.
Okay. Yeah, we're in the same ballpark here. I just don't trust it right now. But I know this much. In this matchup, the way that this game looks, I don't even think there's like a bad piece of this game. Like, obviously, I don't need a ton of Mason Plumlee at 5,300. We're going to have tons of center value. But Rozier, Bridges, Ball, Oubre, I want to take a shot at PJ Washington if he's 3% owned. Like, I'm just going to have him by default if that ownership is real.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a pretty big question mark here. And again, like just thinking about what they probably are going to do, I think you're just even if there's going to be some games where Harrell and Plumlee both play a lot of minutes, I think there's going to be more games where PJ Washington is getting more run.
Yeah. I think PJ Washington is just going to normally get that run, and whoever's playing better out of Plumlee or Harrell is going to be the guy that like falls into more center minutes.
Now, the one thing to keep in mind with Washington too is he is much, 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 much better as a center from a DFS standpoint. Yeah. So even if he gets those minutes, you have to keep in mind that he's likely to produce at a reduced rate.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite guy here for Charlotte?
LaMelo.
Yeah, you and me both. Although $7,600 Bridges, I do love as well.
Yeah, I mean, Rozier, Bridges, LaMelo, all good. LaMelo, I think, just the best.
Thoughts on Oubre? 5% ownership, shooting guard, small forward though.
He's another one that I guess people are catching on now. His rates absolutely plummet when he plays with LaMelo. And we saw like 2 or 3 games in a row where people were just playing him at like 50+% because he was starting, and they weren't accounting for the fact that he was going to have like a sub 20% usage rate. He's still like at 5,900, he could play 36 minutes. And like, if he's playing well, he can get to 36 minutes and have a really good game. I don't think it's particularly likely. I'm not particularly interested. I would gamble on 5K Washington first. Okay.
I gave 32 minutes to Oubre. I didn't feel all that comfortable. I think we're both on the same page here, though. You don't think JT Thor is actually going to be getting any minutes. He played the full fourth quarter.
Wait, they played JT Thor and Mason Plumlee and Montrezl Harrell?
Correct.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally missed that part. It just didn't even register.
I didn't count him in like this is a preposterous lineup discussion because I don't think it's going to happen, but I didn't project Thor for any minutes.
No, I wouldn't either.
Okay.
It actually kind of makes me, and again, I've already said what I'm going to do projection wise, but it does kind of make me think that Plumlee Harrell thing might just never happen again.
Yeah. Which has to make you like PJ Washington at 3% ownership by default.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, Oubre, 703 minutes alongside LaMelo this year, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute, 20.3% usage rate.
Not great for Oubre. Needs the minutes.
Yeah, and actually, while I'm looking at that, if you put Plumlee on the floor, and obviously, sometimes it's going to be Harrell, but looking at PJ Washington, he's only played 123 minutes alongside Plumlee, 0.66 DraftKings points per minute, 14.5% usage rate, 9.7% rebounding percentage. By comparison, without Plumlee on the floor, Washington is at 0.98 DraftKings points per minute. Rebounding percentage jumps to about 12%. Usage rate jumps to 17.5%.
That's important. PJ Washington, not happy that Montrezl Harrell is a Hornet.
Yeah.
And then we go to Minnesota.
Somebody said PJ's playing the 2.
Yeah. Minnesota now at full strength. Pat Bev just got his contract extension. Towns, Edwards, Russell, Beverly, Vanderbilt, all 10 to 20% owned, depending on the site. Either way, you're getting to them. It's a matchup against Charlotte. It's a not good defense. They certainly didn't get any better getting Harrell. They're the second fastest team in the league. Minnesota is first right now. This is 1 versus 2 in pace. We're playing all in Minnesota now too, right?
Yep. I never have an issue getting to this team anyway. I love the main pieces here, but in this spot, I mean, Charlotte for the most part has just been a cheat code this year to take guys against. And now you have guys that produced at a high rate anyway. D'Angelo Russell's still just living at 7,300. I don't really know why. Played 35 and a half minutes last game. That was good to see because a couple of games ago he had played 36 and I was happy about that. But then like Beverly came back and we just got like a pretty shitty Russell rotation where he played like 28 or 29 minutes. And I was a little concerned that with Beverly back, they were going to just sort of try and take it easy on Russell, but played 35 minutes last game. It makes me feel more confident, about sticking with like a 32 to 34 minute projection on him.
Yeah. And I went 34.
Yeah. And that's going to make him look really good. I mean, like if you give him 30 minutes, he looks fine at 7,300. Every minute above that, he just starts to look really, really good. Towns at 9,800 should eat here. You have the center issue, but he's just another one where obviously Embiid is great, but if you can save almost $2,000, get the Karl Anthony Towns, and then move that money elsewhere in your lineup to upgrade other positions, it's going to give you a really high ceiling. I think Edwards in tournaments is always somebody I like because typically he's just going to get a little bit less ownership than the other pieces. He's not quite as favorably priced. We have him, for example, at 15%, Russell at 20%, but shooting guard, small forward eligibility, huge ceiling. We know when he's making his shots, he doesn't stop shooting, which is always really nice in tournaments. So I like him. Yeah. Beverly at 5K looks good. Vanderbilt's risky, but I mean, the upside's still there just based on his rebounding. The playing time is the issue where I think it's tough to expect more than like 24 to 26 minutes.
Vanderbilt, the highest owned guy on FanDuel for Minnesota, 4,500 power forward, 28% ownership. I had him as my second best guy. Edwards on FanDuel for me. Russell on DraftKings at 7,300. This game is just fantastic.
Yep.
Gonna have a lot of that Indy Milwaukee game too.
What'd you say?
Gonna have a lot of that Indy Milwaukee game too.
Yeah, agreed. No, okay. So Naz Reid played like 24 minutes last game, but he still wasn't playing alongside Towns. Towns played 22 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it was the first when I saw it, I was just like, "Oh shit, do I got to pay attention to this?" And then I added up the minutes. I was like, "Nope."
Well, my thinking was if Charlotte's going to play Plumlee plus Harrell or Plumlee plus Washington, you could conceivably get Reid plus Towns.
Hey, maybe we can get Reid at the 3 while Thor's out there.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I still just expect it to be 48 minutes between Towns and Reid at center, probably 48 minutes between Vanderbilt, or actually probably more than 48 minutes between Vanderbilt and McDaniels.
We are on it the same way. Yeah, this game's very clearly going to have the most ownership, really, no matter what happens for the rest of the day, barring any sort of truly weird stuff. 243 total, just not what we normally see. Anything else for Minnesota?
No, I mean, I mentioned Naz Reid before. He is still playable in tournaments at 3,400. Just don't play him with Towns. He's power forward eligible, and all he needs is Towns to miss a few minutes for foul trouble or something, and he should go nuts.
Do you remember how awesome Charlotte, Minnesota was? Memphis at New Orleans. Memphis 3.5-point favorites at the Pels. Ja Morant actually questionable for this one. Everything else is sort of normal, just still no Dillon Brooks. Highest owned guy in this game is 16% owned Desmond Bane at FanDuel. That actually makes a ton of sense to me. The next highest ownership percentage is 5.9% owned Jaren Jackson. I actually like Morant a bit, whether it's 10K on FanDuel, 9,500 on DraftKings. If he is in, I think he ends up owned around that mark. But Memphis as a whole does not look very good here.
No, assuming Morant plays, they really don't. I think 9,500 for Morant is fine. I have no issue getting there. He did come back after rolling his ankle in that game against Charlotte, so I'm assuming that he plays, but that's obviously an injury that can, sort of not get better. So, we'll have to keep an eye there. But if he's in, I think Morant looks like the best piece to me. You can always get to some Jackson, some Adams, some Bane. All of those guys are fine, but I think they're priced about where they should be. If Morant's out, everybody looks better. Jackson looks better. Bane looks better. Melton and Tyus Jones obviously look better.
Good luck getting the Morant at 9,500, Trey at 9,300, LaMelo at 9,100 trio, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's one spot where I think ownership should just naturally play a big role.
And if Morant gets ruled in, like we can't look at Morant right now. Trae Young at 17, LaMelo at 12.5. I assume Ja gets up around that 10 to 15% range. They're just going to be three dudes that look basically identical.
Yep.
Brutal. And you'll want to play all three of them. Good luck picking which one you want.
Yep.
Yeah, I wish I had anything else to say about Memphis, but they look bleak today. That Bane price for 6,300 on FanDuel is the only thing to me that actually stands out. Morant, Bane, Jackson, I'm happy to get to no matter what, but after that, I can't really do it.
Herbert Jones on Morant should be fun to watch.
Let's talk about that Pelicans team where different pricing on FanDuel and DraftKings is changing this one up. For the Pels, we've got CJ, 17% owned on FanDuel. Ingram and Joval, 20% owned. Graham and Hayes in the teens. We only have Devontae Graham crossing the 10% mark on DK, but McCollum, Ingram, and Joval are just before it. How are you feeling here about the New Orleans Pelicans, who have a rotation that makes a ton of sense now? It's pretty easy to just see the five guys that are going to play roughly 30 minutes or more.
Yeah, the pricing I think is still pretty fair, and the matchup against Memphis isn't great. But CJ McCollum hasn't missed a beat since coming to New Orleans. He's playing huge minutes. He's dominating usage. He's getting a bunch of assists. If he's not going to be popular, and he hasn't really been since getting there, I still like getting to him as a contrarian tournament play. I think there's guys that look better in terms of chances of success, but he's projected for 8% ownership. That's a spot that I think still has a really high ceiling. Joe Velt 7,500 looks fine. Ingram at 8,200 is kind of tough to get to for me because we have seen a drop in both usage. We've seen a drop in usage and then a massive drop in his assist opportunities since McCollum's gotten there. Not to say he can't have a big game, but I'm more concerned about him than I am about like McCollum or Joval. Joval's usage has gone down a bit too, but he obviously is still going to dominate rebounding.
Joval, your favorite piece here for DK?
Either him or McCollum.
Okay. $7,800 Ingram, probably my favorite piece in this game. That's a FanDuel price, small forward eligibility. I think that looks pretty good. It's just kind of easy to get to the starters for the most part here for the New Orleans Pelicans. Thoughts on $3,700 Jackson Hayes at power forward on FanDuel?
Well, for one, is he going to play? But assuming he plays, it's okay. Obviously we're not seeing anywhere near the same playing time that we were before. He's still playing a little bit alongside Valanciunas, but not nearly as much. It's I guess like a slightly better version of the DraftKings Naz Reid play.
Is there a reason he wouldn't play?
Pretty sure he left yesterday's game.
Oh, okay.
Could be wrong.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I thought you were going to tell me like, oh, he has to serve prison stays for Tuesdays moving forward or something. Okay, that's fair. I got nothing else here for the Pels. I'm going to close it out.
Yep.
If you thought it was difficult to figure out what you wanted to take from the Clippers yesterday, here's a 12.5 point underdog line where they're on a back-to-back. Tons of ownership coming into Batum, who may or may not play on a back-to-back. Reggie Jackson. Terrence Mann is 20% owned on DraftKings where he's 4,600, 1% owned on FanDuel where he's 6K. Batum's in the 20s basically. Marcus Morris is 17% owned on FanDuel. Isaiah Hartenstein is 21% owned on DraftKings. Zubats is into the teens on DK. What the hell do we do with this Clippers team today other than wait and cross our fingers? By the way, the only game that plays at 10 o'clock tonight, 2 hours after tip of the games before that.
I hate when this team is relevant. I like it so much more when you can just write them off. But I mean, they look good. Reggie Jackson at 6,400 should play a lot of minutes. Played 37.5 minutes yesterday, lost like 4.5 to garbage time. We had seen 40 minutes in the previous game as well. I think, projecting him for 36 minutes or so takes care of the blowout potential because if this game is close, he's probably playing more. He looks good. We've seen him be close to a 30% usage guy this year. Marcus Morris at 6K is okay. Batum at 3,500 is a decent value. He played 28 minutes in 3 quarters yesterday. The game before that, he played like 20 minutes. So we know the playing time is volatile, but if Luke Kennard is out, it solidifies some playing time for Batum as well. I think he looks like a decent value. Zubats likely to play mid-20s. 4,500 is a pretty favorable price tag there. I don't have an issue with Terrence Mann. Yeah, this is a team where I think you're mixing and matching a lot, but I would say Jackson is the guy that really stands out to me.
I've got it at Jackson and Mann as the two biggest standouts. Jackson has a clear one. For Mann, for me, a clear two. 4,600 shooting guard, small forward, playing massive minutes right now. They're 12.5-point dogs, and I feel like I kind of have to have a piece of every single Clipper that could play.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying. I mean, even Covington's down to 4,100. I still have no idea what they're doing with his minutes, but like he played 27 minutes yesterday. He played through garbage time, but he was probably going to play like 22 to 24 anyway.
Yeah, it's wild. This team is nuts right now. Truly nuts. They're all over the map. They basically like changed their entire identity and structure, the way they play people, the minutes that they're playing. They're a different team than they were 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it sucks that Norman Powell immediately got hurt.
I know. We could add another name to this list of confusing shit to do. All told, I think the Clippers look great in the aggregate, other than Reggie Jackson and Terrence Mann. And that Terrence Mann is very clearly on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I still like him at 6K. Like is relative, but 6K is way different than 4,600.
Yeah, because Mann's not a great point per minute guy, but he also he's a good rebounder for a guard. He does enough just across the board to stuff the stat sheet where if he's going to play 36 plus minutes at 4,600 with guard and forward eligibility, he's just going to be a really useful piece.
Then we close it out with Phoenix. Same people that are normally around for Phoenix are in here today. No Campaign, no Landry Shamet. Not a ton that's interesting, although we are getting Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Cam Johnson into the mid-teens with ownership. I don't have any priorities here for Phoenix. I'm happy to get to Paul or Booker. I'm happy to get to any of the starters, really, but I don't love it.
I do. I mean, we got some discounts here too.
Sure.
$8,400 Booker. Yes, please. That looks great. $8,800 Paul, I think looks good. $6,600 Ayton looks very good. Those three all look great to me. If you get to some Bridges, some Crowder, that's fine. But those three, I think, are all great plays.
Yeah, I like them. I have them all. I have Paul, Bridges, and Booker as about 10%ers. It's just so that those ranges are just so loaded. I mentioned the Morant, Young, Ball trio in the nines. You got Chris Paul at 8,800, Butler at 86, Halliburton 85, Booker at 84, even Jaylen Brown to a degree at 83, or Brandon Ingram at 82. We'll go all the way. The whole 8K. We'll even go to CJ at 8K and Edwards at 8K. I think all of those guys look good today.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just, Booker and Paul play so many minutes if this game is competitive. Obviously, that's a big if. But if it's not, one of them probably was really efficient anyway. And you also can throw darts at somebody like a $3,800 Cameron Johnson. You could conceivably get 24 to 26 minutes there if the rotation breaks your way.
Young, Ball, Paul, Butler, Halliburton, Booker, Jaylen Brown, which is probably going to be the lightest one, but he is in double digits in ownership. Ingram, McCollum, Edwards. I think legitimately however that 10 of those guys that I just mentioned are good plays today.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's
scary, man. And we still even if I keep dropping down from there, Terry Rozier, Middleton, Drew Holiday, Miles Bridges, this is a 7-game slate. It is stacked from 7 to 9.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good mid-range plays today.
I didn't mention Darius Garland, D'Angelo Russell. Could you turn your alarm off or whatever's going on here?
That was my buzzer, but it scared the shit out of me.
And that was part of the reason why I just said Chris Paul, Devin Booker are both fine. It's because I don't know how to compare all of these guys together, because I think there's 25 options relative to salary that I think that you could just randomly start picking them out of a hat and be like, yep, that's a good lineup. Very tough slate today.
Yeah, it is. In theory, you should get really flat ownership. So that's definitely something to pay attention to, because if you don't, then, get the low-owned guys that look very similar.
GPP videos, injury report videos, deeper dive for you?
Yep.
There it is, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the strategy show. Keep your eyes peeled for more content for the rest of the day. Thank you to No House Advantage for being the presenting sponsor. Good luck, everybody. Win some money. Back again tomorrow, doing it all again.